Welcome to the Mom and podcast. We're your hosts, Suzanne Kearns
and Missy Stevens. We want to help you through everything that happens in the ellipses, from your professional life to your emotional health.
You're a mom and so much more. Let's figure out what comes next together.
Welcome to the Mom and podcast. It's Summer Camp for Moms Week 4, featuring an encore presentation with the geniuses behind EvolveMe, Linda Lautenberg and Judy Schoenberg.
If you are joining us for the first time, we are nearing the end of our summer camp theme replays, all focused on helping moms discover and develop their passions while their kids are off at summer camps doing the same thing.
Yeah, and EvolveMe is a network developed specifically for midlife women facing a pivot or a relaunch. For example, women who maybe have been home in the primary caregiver role and are now ready to get back out there.
Or women who are ready to change careers, or women who can't remember what lights them up.
Yeah, or if those women have no idea who they are anymore, something we're kind of familiar with, or women who just don't want to face that next chapter by themselves.
And even if you are not in midlife yet, do not worry, you will be one day. So get prepared now. And if you are past midlife, nope, you're not. Midlife is as much of mindset as it is age.
I just love that concept. We talk about that a lot. And one of my favorite moments in this episode is when Linda was talking about going back to her Harvard Business School reunion. And she said that nearly every woman she talked to was apologizing for something. She was apologizing for working and not being home with her kids, or for not working and having this degree and not using it, or doing something in a way, anything, whatever it was, that just didn't feel right and felt like they were going to face judgment for. And I thought it was so eye-opening, because here are these women who look like the picture of success with Harvard degrees, and they were still questioning every decision they made.
I know. Yeah, that one really stuck out for me too. And so, yeah, that's where Judy and Linda in EvolveMe come in. You do not have to be alone with your questions and insecurities anymore. And with that, we'll get you right into the original episode. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, and have a good one.
Bye. Welcome to the Mom and podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping moms figure out who they are, what they want, and how to get it. And pretty much rinse, repeat that forever. I mean, it always changes, right? And I'm Suzanne Kearns. I'm a mom and writer, LGBTQ ally, and today a potentially blooming extrovert. I'm going to talk about that later in the Look, Listen, Learns.
Kind of scaring me.
I know. Who am I?
I'm Missy Stevens. I'm a mom and writer, foster care advocate. And this week I'm a football parent again. We'll talk about that more later too.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Today, we are so excited to have Judy Schoenberg and Linda Lautenberg, founders of EvolveMe, on the show. Together, Judy and Linda founded EvolveMe, an organization specializing in career reinvention and community building for women in midlife career transition. The program is designed to help women attain clarity, gain confidence, and launch the best chapter of their professional lives. Though Judy is a graduate of Harvard University and a former national executive for Girl Scouts of the USA, and lives in Brooklyn, New York with her husband, 2 sons, and a feisty rescue dog. Linda is a Harvard Business School graduate and a chartered financial analyst. Prior to her own professional reinvention, she had a highly successful career in real estate finance and securitization. She lives near the Jersey Shore with her husband, 1 to 3 kids, depending on college schedules, and way too many pets. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, this is great.
We
are so excited.
Oh, yes. You took the words right from my mouth, Missy.
Sorry.
Well, we just, Missy gave a sliver of information about your backgrounds, but would love for each of you to give us more of a 101 on your own evolution of your careers and also what led you to start EvolveMe. And since this is our first time interviewing 2 guests at the same time,
Yeah.
I'm going to call on Judy to start to make sure we're not talking over each other.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. It's great to be here. And thank you for having us on the podcast. You gave a great summary of my career, a snapshot, and want to dig a little bit deeper. So I had a long career in the nonprofit sector ever since I graduated from college, really. So I'm dating myself, but that's okay because we're all in midlife here. I've been in the nonprofit sector. I was in it for about 2 decades, and I spent 15 years at Girl Scouts of the USA, headquarters in New York City. And I started there right out of graduate school, and I worked my way up and was after 15 years, was the executive of our research institute. So we did market research with girls and women on leadership and economic security and health and lots of different issues touching girls and women's lives. And was coming towards my end of my 15-year tenure, and I saw 50 on the horizon in the next few years. And I said, I started here when I was in graduate school. I've had, right out of graduate school, rather. I've had a wonderful career here, a lot of accomplishments. I had my 2 kids during my tenure at Girl Scouts of the USA. I had, the flexibility, having been there for a number of years, to work 4 days a week and work from home one day, and really allowed me to continue my career and raise my children. So I was really fortunate to have that opportunity. And my kids were getting a little bit older, not as old as Linda's kids, but they were more self-sufficient than toddlers when I saw 50 coming up on the horizon. And I said, you know what, I don't want to be here when I turned 50, nothing against the organization, but I'd be ready for new challenges, and as my kids were getting older, I felt like, okay, like I have the bandwidth, I have the mind space, I have the time to really invest in myself and think about what's next for me. So I took a leap. And I left without really knowing what was going to happen next. I took a leap at a good time. It was like at the height of my career. So I left feeling really accomplished, which tends to help when you're making a transition.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't always work out for women that way that we work with. And we have a lot of tips and tricks to reinstill their confidence. But I was leaving on a high. So that was great. And I was freelancer for 3 years. I thought that, I was doing program development and research. And then I thought I wanted to be an executive director of a small nonprofit. And then I said, well, I know I could do those jobs, but do I really want to do those jobs? Or should I really, open up my my view of what's possible for me across, in other industries too. Anyway, long story short, I found a program that was for women returning to the workforce in the social impact sector at a startup. And I was kind of doing it for research purposes because I thought I might want to do that kind of work. And I met Linda there. She did the program right after me. And the woman actually that was leading it got a full-time job in Connecticut. And they were looking for women who could help rebrand, remarket, reprogram, and expand the offering. And so Linda and I didn't know each other. We were paired together. And I'll let her take over from here. But those were the beginnings of EvolveMe in the making, and us working together. And we complement each other really well. And so that's why it's worked for us to be co-founders and business partners of our own company. So,
and how long ago was that where you met up?
We met in 2018. So a few years ago now. And then we worked at the startup together for about a year or so. We had a summit in New York City in 2019 with 100 women who came, and career entry experts. So it was a huge success. And from there, we had a group of women we work with in a more intense way in a cohort. And we said that startup wasn't focused on women anymore. It had to contract for different reasons. And we saw there was such a need specifically for women in midlife. The startup wasn't really focused on women in midlife, but we were, we created the program we wish we had. We couldn't find anything quite like this when we were
kind of like our podcast. We created what we wish we had.
What we wish we had. Yes.
Yeah. And Linda and I come from different angles, me as a career pivoter going from the nonprofit sector into the entrepreneurial space, and Linda as a career returner, and she can share more of her story. But we cover, as she said, with kids, we cover a lot of bases because our kids are all different ages. And then with our industry experience and, how we kind of see the world work, because we come at different sides of the story. It works really well to, be empathic to different women's situations.
Okay, Linda, that kicks it over to you. And I think I'm in your ballpark as far as kind of more of a relauncher versus a pivoter career-wise. So I'm very excited to hear about yours as well.
Yeah. And I love how you guys almost said the same thing at the same time, because Judy and I complete each other's sentences all the time.
Yes.
It's so fun to see another two women that work so well together. So this is fun. So so as Judy said, I come at this at a little different angle, both from my professional background and then what happened after. So I doing real estate finance, securitization, much more of a corporate background. I left to get my MBA. I came back and I did the same thing. And I have to say, I really just kind of fell into that career. I grew up and went to college in Minnesota, and I took the job I took because I was going to do marketing. I took this position because it was in Manhattan. And that would really
Right.
nothing. I said, I got there and I called my parents and I said, whatever they want me to do, I want to be here. So, and I think, and I only highlight that because I think a lot of people do kind of fall into their first careers. And then once you're on the path, then you just kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going with it. So I did take a career break for my husband's career. He's a physician. We moved out of the city, far enough out of Manhattan that it was, at the time this was, going back 20 years at least. So, there was no Zoom. There was barely internet. So, so if you were not in the city, you could not be in the industry that I was in. I had one child at the time. I knew we were going to have more. So I thought, let me just take a little break and get my daughter situated here and meet people. I didn't know anybody. And, of course, 18 years later, I still was not, I was working really hard, doing a lot of different things, but not getting paid for any of them.
Oh, hallelujah. I'm on 16.
And sounds real familiar.
Yeah.
So it's so familiar. And on it, and it's, it's funny because I did go back to my business school reunion. I tell this story a lot, but I think it was my 10th. And every woman, the men were all fine. They were in the corner talking about whatever they were doing.
Right.
Every woman that I talked to was either apologizing for the fact that she was a stay-at-home mom and that she had this fancy business school degree and was using it to unload the dishwasher, or they were apologizing because they had had kids and had a full-blown career and, their children were in daycare, or that they had put their life on hold for their career. And every woman was somehow apologizing for something, else. So, and I definitely felt that way when I first stepped out of the workforce. For the first 5 years, if you would have met me, I wouldn't tell you what I was doing. I would tell you what I used to do.
Yep.
So it was really hard for me, that identity. It's very hard to let go of. And I know Judy wrestled with that too when she stepped away from Girl Scouts of the USA. You're used to being able to introduce yourself as, hi, my name is Linda, and this is what I do. And automatically, then you have that confidence of saying, oh, they know I'm smart, or they know I can do this, or what have you.
Yep.
When you introduce yourself and I'm a stay-at-home mom, then
You get nothing.
Oh, it's so tough.
I remember the first time when I was staying home with my daughter and we were doing some remodeling, and I had, recently left my job, and I used to work on Disney, and then after that, I had worked on Apple. And so you're used to, in a business sense, being able to be like, I'm pretty sure that I could get what I want out of this because people want to work with Apple or want to work with Disney. And this guy that was working on our kitchen just didn't really care that I was Suzanne Kearns and I wanted something.
Right.
And it's like, no, you can't get that. I'm like, wait a minute, but hey,
Don't you know?
I asked nicely. So yeah, it's just an interesting, like you feel like you don't have that weight of legitimacy behind you or this business card to say that you're a real person. It's super important.
Yeah. And it was a complete blessing. I mean, I like that I was in a luxury that I was able to take that time off, but it was, I think in many relationships, somebody's got to be more flexible, and depending on how rigid one career is determines how flexible the other has to be. So,
Yes.
but I did do a lot of nonprofit work when I was out and, supported a lot of organizations, but I guess I never really, I kind of discounted that in my head of being like anything particularly valid. I just was, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So when my oldest was getting ready to go to college, all of a sudden I realized that nothing had just fallen into my lap. And I was working my way out of this mom job, and I needed to find something that was going to be left for me, and right now I'm at that point now where my youngest this is her senior year in high school. So I'm so thankful that I did get on this as early, when I did. But my real problem was the confidence thing was definitely a problem. But I think my biggest issue was I had no idea what I wanted to do. All I knew is that I didn't want to go work on Wall Street. There were returnships out there to go work for JP Morgan or what have you, but that wasn't me anymore. I had evolved so much as a person that like I cared about so many other things, but I just didn't even know what was out there anymore. I had no more connections. Whatever I had was in real estate. I didn't even know where to begin. So I really spun my wheels for a good 3 years, and I was trying, I did reconnect with my alumni groups and started trying to strategically do some good volunteering work, but I just was really lost. I thought for a while I would be a teacher. And so I started going down that path. And then I thought I would do fashion merchandising. And I was all over the place. And it just wasn't something I could kind of figure out with my mom friends or my family. So when I landed on this program that Judy talked about, at least I had some other women that were in the same boat as me. It was a program that was specifically for career returners that wanted to go into the social impact space. That was good enough for me. I just wanted other people that wanted to go back to work. And it really just signing up and knowing that I had some structure really flipped that switch. Yeah. So when Judy and I, when we were done contracting for that company and that program came to an end, we really stepped back and said, what's really missing here is we had women while we were working with returners coming to us and saying, do you have a program for my friend? Because she is working, but she doesn't want to do that anymore. And she doesn't know how to change her career. And she's too busy because she's got family and she's got work and she doesn't have time to spend on herself. And another person came to us saying, I just got divorced and I need to change what I'm doing, but I'm like so busy with this, and just, people being all over the place. And what we realized is that all these women, all these transition points were happening in midlife. And that was kind of the common connection. And so we created EvolveMe, the program that we wish would have been available for us when we were at a transition point in midlife. And it's really for anybody, we don't like to put a number on it because everybody kind of hits that at different times. Some people hit it in their mid 30s. Some people don't hit it until their mid 60s. But at some point, there's something that happens that you just know you need a change. And you need to know that it's not too late to make it.
Yeah.
Oh, you said so many things that set off so many feelings.
Bing, bing, bing.
Like all the emotions came back. And I don't even know where to start, but I want to start a little bit with you talked about just falling into a path. And that's a common thread that has come up in a lot of people we've talked to, is that we get on this train and then we feel stuck on that train, whether it's we're ashamed to admit it's not right for us, or we don't know how to financially get off, or whatever the circumstances may be. So I'm curious, as you've talked to women through EvolveMe, what are some of the tips and tricks you have for them to help them step back and not feel that shame or that fear in hopping off into the next thing?
Yeah.
I can share some, and then Linda, if you want to chime in. But, some of what we talk about that is like empowering for women as they are thinking about stepping up the path that they're on is, to think about careers in a different way, in their professional life in a different way, which is that there is like having a non-linear path is okay, that you don't have to be on the straight and narrow to have a successful career. So it's really reimagining what success looks like. And for women that we work with a lot, in midlife, it's not just having the right next job and going up the ladder. It's really looking at how your work fits into the rest of your life and your lifestyle, and it being a good culture fit, right? So it's a culture that really matches your values. And women want more out of work, now, especially if a lot of the women that we work with have had success in the industry that they're in. So they can continue on that path, but it's not, as you said, like it's not satisfying or doesn't feel meaningful. And so what we do is people come to us and say often like, oh, can you help me with my resume? And we're like, no, take a step back. Like if you want to chart a new path, right? Don't send out any resumes. Don't revise your resume. Don't revise your LinkedIn profile before you really take the time and invest the time. And this is the part that people miss so much in their career transition to really spend the time evaluating and assessing what you love to do,
Mhm.
what brings you that flow, what you kind of forget yourself in. Like, what are the things that you
Mhm.
love to do, before you fell into the career that you're in?
Right.
Be in childhood that, you never even imagined would lead to a career.
Yeah.
What are the values, right? We go through a whole values inventory assessment. What are your values right now? And how could those be infused in a next career path? And yeah, what kind of culture works for you? Do you want more flexibility? Do you want more autonomy? I mean, we had a woman we worked with that said, you know what I want right now? I want, she had been, she'd stayed at home with her kids for a while and she had a successful career before in the HR industry. And she said, I want to go back. I think I want to go back just part time. What I really want, I want to go into an office and I want a chair to hang my sweater behind because I haven't had
Oh,
that for so long. So for everybody, it's going to be something different, right? And so that
yeah.
might not be, like maybe she'd continue in the industry that she's in, but perhaps the environment is different, right? It might
Mhm.
be instead of a big corporation, maybe it's actually she was at a startup in the end. She wound up at a
Yeah.
startup. So I think that it's really examining like what success looks like for you now, surrounding yourself with other women who are also trying to reimagine, what success looks
Mhm.
like for them. Because especially if you've been a high achieving person like yourselves, like you can get stuck on this path and feel like the only way to measure success is to go up when we
Yep.
see women going all different kinds of sideways,
Yeah.
zigzagging their way into their transition. And I have to say, I'll be vulnerable here for a minute for myself. Like I spent so much time in the nonprofit sector. And for me, even to get off of that path, I was like, no, this is the path for meaning. Like, I mean, for me,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
even going into something in the business world was like a huge stretch. And I was like, oh, what are people going to think when I tell them I'm leaving the nonprofit sector, and I'm a business person now and I'm a
Yeah.
small business owner.
And meanwhile, they're so wrapped up in their own stuff that they don't even know
Right.
this.
And
Right.
like, there's different ways to accomplish having an impact, right?
Yeah.
And depending on what your mission is, and we're a social entrepreneurship. And so like me taking that time, you speaking, for myself to evaluate not just, what sector do I want to be in, but what was so useful what we do with women and across a number of different exercises we take them through. We do this whole discover. We have a model for career reinvention called DARE. So it's discover, amplify, refresh, and embark. And that first piece of discover is all of that assessment work of your
Mhm.
skills, your talents, your values, what you love to do, what you really want to bring forward, your transferable skills. That really helps, especially if you're getting off the linear path to take with you all of those soft skills, leadership, communication, collaboration skills, all the things that people don't even consider are really portable when they're trying to get into a new area. So we have, a very structured way that we lead women through it because you can, Google your way around anything, but to have that structure, especially when you want to gain clarity and get off that more linear path is really important.
What's the timing typically of like how long does it take your average person in your program to go through that discovery piece? That's the part for myself that I always feel like there's some breaks. Like just putting my values, Suzanne and I have worked on it as a podcast team. Like, what
Yeah.
are our values for this show? And I've worked on my personal value assessment before, but I find it really difficult.
So I think that's one of those questions. It depends. We
Yeah.
have some women come through our program and, they were close anyway. And
Mhm.
then they land a new position or decide to launch a business before we even through the 10 weeks. And other women, quite frankly, a couple months later and they're still working on the discovery piece. So it just depends on like how far along you were coming
Right.
into it in the first place. One of the things that we encourage women, because we do work with a lot of women, some feel kind of trapped, right? Because not everybody can just say, oh, I'm just going to, leave work and take
Yes.
the leap or can be on career break like I was. And so what we encourage people to do is through doing that clarity work, but to also start taking a step back and looking at, all the tasks that they've done so that they can come up with a really solid list of what their personal brand is and their
I like
transferable
that.
skills that they bring to the table. So if you were to take your resume and go back over all the jobs you've ever done and include all the volunteer work and managing a kitchen reconstruction and, you know,
Right.
whatever it is, all those things, and come up with everything you bring to the table, things start to fall out and you start to get a narrative
Yeah.
of what it is that who you are and what you bring to the table. And then when you
Mm.
can marry that with what it is that you love to do, sometimes you might find that it's not every woman that is dissatisfied with her career. And, you know, you're all moms here. So I think a lot of women have just kind of plateaued in their career because they've got something that, like, you know, they might not love what they're doing, but they're keeping all the other plates spinning at
Yep.
the same
Yeah.
time. So good enough, right?
Yeah.
Everybody around me
Yeah.
is happy. So that's good enough for me right now.
Right.
But so sometimes you don't necessarily have to make a full sail leap. If you can take some time for yourself to go back and really think about which things that you do at work that you love to do and which things you don't love to do anymore, and
Mhm.
do some of that work, you might be able to job craft within your own company.
Wow. Yeah.
Or you might be able to carve out some time to do some project work for a nonprofit. And, you know, if you're a working mom, like, God only knows, it's like hard enough to do that and raise kids. But that is how we have some people like try to explore something in a safe way, is take on a project for a nonprofit or something like that to try out a new
Yeah.
skill.
And I think that doing some of that trial
Mhm.
work is also another way that you can start to build back that confidence and feel like
Yes.
you do have some skills. But I know we talk about confidence a lot. We hear it from other coaches, we see it on your website. So I think especially stay-at-home moms, but I'm sure any woman can get this, you know, but we've people who spent pretty much their whole life taking care of others.
Mhm.
And also, parenting is the ultimate in bringing you back to your humble self as far as
For a while, I said my whole job was wiping. And people ask me what I did. I'm like, I wipe things. I wipe noses, behinds, counters, floors. I'm just a wiper. I used to do other stuff, but that's what I do. It kind of
Now
eats
I'm a
away at you.
wiper.
Yeah, but no matter how many people you used to give speeches in front of, or, you know,
Right.
how high up your client contact was, when you got a baby that's crying and you don't know what to do with it, I mean, you just feel like you don't know anything in the whole world. So, I mean, there's a lot of building back up that comes after even just a couple years off, let alone those of us who are in the double digits of years
Yeah.
off. So, what are some other ways that you help women rediscover this confidence or build back that confidence so that they can make a change and take those steps?
I think one of the biggest ways is when you're working with other women that are all in the same boat and you see all these highly credentialed women and you realize that they are all having the same, it's imposter syndrome is a little overused, but they're having that same
Yep.
imposter syndrome that,
Mhm.
like, what if somebody finds out that I don't really know what I'm talking about? Or, you
Yes.
know, that when you realize that other really credentialed women are feeling the same way, it normalizes it.
Mm.
So now you're not alone, right? You realize that it's just something that we all have. And whether,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Women that are returning to the workforce, I mean, I felt I like the wiper one. That's better. But I used to say, all I'm qualified to do now is I'm really good at loading the dishwasher.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
really felt like, you know, but if you step
Fold a mean
back,
towel.
you realize that you're like a master of the universe with the number of things that you organize and think. But even for women that are looking to make a career change, they might have confidence in their, we talk about two kinds of confidence. Like they might have a lot of confidence in, like Judy, in the nonprofit world. But if you would
Mhm.
have said, oh, go be an entrepreneur, like that would just be like, what? No, I can't, you
Yeah.
know? So
Right.
but being with a bunch of other women and being able to see yourself through their eyes helps a ton, because other people can see things in you that you would
Mhm.
never see in yourself.
Yeah.
And
That
so
is true.
so that's definitely one of the things that just, and I'll let Judy go into some more of the actual work that we do, but I would say just for starters, being around other women like that and getting it out there is huge.
Yeah. piggybacking on what Linda said, we bring women together across all different industries, roles, sectors. And so what's so beautiful about it is that usually like professional development is only done, lawyers talk to lawyers or designers talk to designers. Now you have a woman who's maybe a lawyer sitting across or on Zoom from a designer. And she sees things in the designer that the designer never considered because she has a lawyer looking at it from an entirely different perspective outside of her industry. And suddenly, she's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Huh. I've never thought about things that way. And it opens up like just the openness of new possibilities. That's one thing that really, women take away from is just like things that they would never have considered before because they're talking with people, outside of their own industry. Definitely what you said, Suzanne, about owning your accomplishments, you still own we talk to women about the fact that they still own all of those accomplishments, even if they were wiping and loading the dishwasher, like that doesn't go away. And what also doesn't go away ever is the image or the perception that the colleagues that you worked with in those roles have of you. So we say that, your colleagues have like a frozen in time image of you when you worked together and you were doing amazing things, right? Wherever you were at Apple or Disney or what have you. And so when you go back to those people for networking and to revive your contacts, that it really helps to go in with that mindset. And in terms of like building up your sense of confidence, definitely trying to go out there and even if you don't have a title or a role, if you're on a break, like to go out there and talk to others about ideas for the direction that you want to take, the impact that you want to have, like start to put yourself in positions where you're being seen as a professional, whether it's starting small by sharing articles in an industry that you want to go into on LinkedIn, commenting on social media, being part of the conversation. There's so many free webinars out there right now because we've all moved to remote. There's so many free courses online. If you feel like you're lacking the skills right now, let's say in technology, just do something quick to skill up so that you are at least proficient. You don't have to be an expert about any of these things, right? But if you want to feel relevant, there's a lot of different free ways that you can do that, join industry groups. And, before you do any of that, you want to spend that time up front, as we were talking about before, to gain clarity. And then eventually we move through the process where women get a refreshed sense of themselves. So setting up a home office like we all have, having a professional kind of virtual presence, refreshing their style. Like, how does that speak to them for who they are now? How are they presenting to the world when they're doing interviewing, informational interviewing, spinning? And then we go into refreshing their resume and LinkedIn, which of course gives you more confidence when you're going out to the world to network. But it's baby steps along the way too. And we don't think any step is too small. Often, women want to be at certain place like much sooner. But and there's, I have to be honest with you, there are sometimes backsliding in confidence. Like people feel really good. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, oh, I didn't, nobody, that person that I really wanted to answer that email never wrote back. What do I do? Are they ghosting me? Is the recruiter, so there are these laps in confidence. But as Linda was saying, the group brings you back in. The group really, the accountability and the momentum you get from moving in the same direction with like-minded women, it's everything. And it's funny, I want to let you in on a secret that I don't think I've ever told Linda, maybe, but I feel like
Linda's face.
I mean, Linda's like, maybe, but it's, I know that there will be probably like a lot of moms who are on a break and taking care of children and listening, in your audience, and you all have taken breaks. And as you were speaking about confidence, I didn't have the confidence at the time to stay home. Because I felt like I was so tied to my work identity that it was so much a part of me for so long that I had that fear that we were talking about. Who would I be if I wasn't this person that everybody knew as like, oh, you're working at Girl Scouts. Oh, I know what that is. So that was something, confidence came up for me in a totally different way. And then, as I kind of grew into that idea, I took a leap for myself. But that was just when you were talking, Linda. I was like, oh wow, it's a full circle story over here.
Yes,
you never know what can come up in this conversation.
I know.
No, we have revelations almost every week. sometimes both of us at the same time are going,
What?
but in
Yes.
fact, Suzanne not long ago, like really came to this, like I watched her have this revelation in real time. I could see wheels turning where she realized her lack of clarity about who she was and what she was going to do did not come with motherhood. It started before.
Way back.
And when she started to
College
talk about that, I
Yep.
realized that when I had my first child, I was not happy with what I was doing either. It was not the right fit for me. I didn't know how to get out of it. And then that baby helped me get out of it, I guess. But
Missy,
you know,
I
I
have to
think
say, I'm kind of like the same with both of you. Like I fell into it, and I have to say, Missy, once I stepped away from that, like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I
Right.
was not a Wall Street person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just because
Yeah.
you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
That's why we talk about sometimes
Yeah.
like going back through your job things and thinking about, well, I did this, but what did I like about it and what did I not? And again, with that clarity piece, and whether it's with Evolve Me or some other group, or the two of you have each other, but whatever group that you can find, it helps to have that for the clarity piece too,
Mhm.
because you have somebody to bounce it off of. That's not like
Yeah.
your partner
Right.
or
Right.
your best mom friend, or, you
Yeah.
need kind
Because
of a
they're coming
separate
at
group.
you in kind of a different,
Yeah. There's a
that,
different investment in it, right?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Or,
sometimes
or,
someone's love for you can cloud a
or
little
you
of
just
that.
need somebody to see you with fresh eyes.
Yeah, or
Yep.
they have assumptions about who you are and
Yes.
what
Yeah.
you do, and they're like, "No, you're the lawyer. You
Right.
can't. I can't see you as
Mhm.
this other thing yet." And
Mhm.
I don't even know where I heard it, but I love the saying that there's nothing more dangerous than being good at a job that you hate. And I really love this.
Oh, that's a great one. I've never heard that.
Oh, yes. And I felt that very much because I
Yeah.
got a lot of accolades. I progressed
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I like to think I was good at my job and I worked really hard at it, but I did not like what I was doing. I like the people and I like my
Yeah.
clients, but the work itself just wasn't a good fit. So I love your clarity piece being, yes, it's what you're good at, but also what you enjoy. And
Yes.
I'm having that struggle as a mom right now as my son, he's got this real math science brain, but I wouldn't say that that's his passion. And I for
Yeah.
a long time was just like, oh no, this was the kid who at 2 years old was like doing 7 puzzles at the same time. I need to direct him in this area. And I think I did him a disservice for a few years there, thinking like, oh, well, naturally this must be your path because that's what you're so good at. And I don't think that will be his career field. So it's
Yeah.
kind of stepping back and doing the same thing for ourselves, like just seeing where that blooms and really thinking about what does spark joy. I'm gonna be a Marie Kondo. What does spark joy
Yeah.
about these activities?
Although probably not a disservice, because if you wouldn't have directed him in that path, you wouldn't have found out that it wasn't his path. Like
That's true.
sometimes finding out something is wrong for you is even more informative than finding out that something might be right.
Yes. Oh
I
my
do love
gosh.
that concept. We've talked about that recently on the show, that just because you spent 6 weeks or a year or whatever
Mhm.
amount of time it was going in this direction only to find out it was wrong,
Yeah.
that's not a waste of time.
No, that's a
And
win.
you learned things along the way, and
Yeah.
and there are snippets, like it might not be that direction, but you could still, again, pull things out of it that you
Mhm.
probably did like.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's better than sitting still.
Yes. Get out of neutral. Get out of neutral. Isn't that what Julie Lithcott-Hames told us? Get out of
Yes.
neutral.
Yeah.
Out of neutral. That's
Yeah.
hard to do, though.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
that's
so
like the
hard.
pull of other people, I think,
Yeah.
it definitely helps pulling you along.
And I
Like a
love
gym
how
buddy.
your organization focuses. We talk a lot about the coaches, but the element of community as well as the coaching, I think it's kind of this
Huge.
nice protective blanket on both
Right.
sides to encourage you and challenge you and make you think about things that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And one of our big things here is like our friend KJ Delantonia. I mean, she was a New York Times editor, but she came on to talk about getting a coach, a book coach, for when she was writing her first novel, because even a professional writer who's a New York Times editor can benefit from having a coach. So it's
Mhm.
not saying that you're not good enough
Right.
to want to have coach and to have some help. I mean, there's a reason that professional golfers still have coaches. Like there's, the professional sports people still have coaches because everybody can benefit from that. And I could spend really the rest of the day talking about this, but I just realized at the time
I know it went so fast.
It
It's
went
so fast.
too fast. But before we jump into our Look, Listen, Learn segment, we want to make sure that listeners know where to find you and learn about some of your seminars and how they connect with you.
Sure. So actually, we have a lot of exciting things coming up. The next thing we have, Judy's better on the calendar dates than I am, but the next thing we have coming up is a webinar training, a free live training that is on the 21st of September at 1:00 Eastern time. And I'm sure you'll have show notes but it's evolveme.work/confidence, but I'm sure everybody can get the show notes. And so that'll be a live training about getting back your confidence and getting on with your next chapter. And then we're very excited. One of the co-working spaces where actually Judy and I met for the first time, they have always had a monthly women's breakfast. And they came to us when they were going to do their first in-person event. So we're going to be doing that at LMHQ in Lower Manhattan. But if you're not in Manhattan, there's also a virtual component to that.
Okay.
Oh,
And Judy, please tell me the day for that.
That's the 23rd. And we also have another webinar, all the webinars, September 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern that you can tune into. And we would love for you to also be able to take some time to do some of the work that we've been talking about. So we have a free tool that is a career strategy tool, and it's called the EvolveMe Career Reinvention Analyzer. And it will walk you through a process to look at your skills, your talents, what you're good at, what you love to do, and where there's a fit in the marketplace right now. And then you can get that on our website too at evolveme.work/SWOT, SWOT, and that's a free resource. So
I'm going to do that when we hang up here. I'm going to do that today.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got that downloaded.
And then I guess the last thing that we want people to know is that our 5th cohort of the EvolveMe Reinvention Collective is launching on October 19th. We get a lot of moms. That is why we would never be so mean as to launch it in September. Would be a terrible thing to mothers everywhere. So we let everybody get settled, and then we start in October. It's a 10-week program that absolutely will help you figure things out and move you forward faster. And if you want to learn more about it, there's information on our website. But we also offer a free strategy session, so you can sign up and talk to me or Judy for a half hour and just figure out if it's a good fit for you. So we have that on our website as well.
Okay, we will get the links for all of those in the show notes so people can find them. All right.
And the things that are happening maybe before this airs, we'll put some stuff out on our socials.
That's great. Thank you so much. This was such a good conversation. I'm like, don't go away.
I know. We just love what you are doing so much. It's so aligned with what we're trying to accomplish with the podcast.
I know. I feel really excited that there's so much for people considering the next step.
I know. I mean, that's our big thing. I mean, people ask like, what are you doing this for? We're like, we're doing this so no other woman has to feel like we do. And so it just is such it takes a physical weight off of me when I see smart, amazing women covering like you got this covered. Okay, you got that group of women. We'll get this group of women. Like we're gonna get them all.
Yes.
Suzanne, I have to say, like, I love what you just said, because that is kind of at least how I felt about it. Like when I went into it personally, I never wanted anybody to feel like I felt for 3 years.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling.
No, it's really lonely.
Yeah.
And I think what we've learned in doing it, we've been talking to coaches and other women, helping women for about 9 months now. Everyone has felt that lonely before, and nobody likes it. And we're all out here. We just need to remember to reach out, and we all have the same heart for helping each other.
Yeah. We love what you guys are doing too.
Podcasts are they're so great to be able to, be the friend in your ear too, that you guys are. I take lots of podcasts walking, and I think especially during like the pandemic time, like podcasts have been a saving grace for women. You can also multitask while you're doing it. So this is amazing what you're doing, and then put this together. It's really a great resource.
I have so many friends who don't know they're my friend and that walk dogs with me, and they're like,
Yeah. Yeah, they don't
and
know
I feel
how
like
close
we're
we are.
besties. Yeah, they don't realize how close we really are.
Yeah.
Oh, on that
Freaking yeah.
note, we can kick it off to the Look, Listen, Learn. Our Look, Listen, Learn segment is where we each share something that we've been looking at, reading, watching, admiring, or listening to, like music, podcasts, or audiobooks, or learning, which can be anything from the meaning of life to just a fun product you have discovered. So let's
Yeah.
see, I'm going to go in my square order. So I'm starting with Judy.
Okay. A podcast that I've really loved. We like to say it involved me. Like, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So definitely, you'll get a boost if you listen to other women who've reinvented, talk about their career stories, how they got to where they are now, all the bumps, that it took to get there, and
Sure.
and there's the satisfaction that they're feeling now. So anyway, all that is to say, a colleague of ours, Katie Fogarty, you might know it, has a certain age podcast, and we really
Mhm.
like that one for all the women that she features,
Oh.
health, beauty, wellness, etc. That one's got me going. And on the same vein as that, I wanted to share a book because my commitment over the summer was to read again. I'm speaking of college majors. I was a literature major in college, but running a business and kids and all of the above, like really,
Yep.
it's hard to find time to read. But I read a great book about a reinvention story. This is the book, if anybody can see it. It's called
Someone just
Finding.
told me about that one.
Oh yeah, it's called Finding Freedom: A Cook
Yeah.
Story Remaking a Life from Scratch by Erin French. And there's a restaurant in Maine, in Freedom, Maine,
Yes.
that she now runs, and she has a whole amazing story. She's a mother too, of a teenage boy. And anyway, it was like over the summer, I said, maybe we should get in the car and drive to Freedom to go to the restaurant. Little did I know that it's like, you can't get like, even though it's in this obscure, like, tiny corner of Maine, like you cannot get reservations there. Like, it's
And is it
Don't
the
you have to
place
send a
you have to
postcard?
send the postcard? Yeah.
We just spent about half of our Tipsy Ellipsy. We do a live
Yes.
taping on Facebook Live, and we spent about a good chunk of that episode talking about her. And she has a
Show.
Netflix show too.
Yes, it's coming out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
it came out already, but I just read about the show. I was like, oh, I have to look at the show now. I have to watch. That's so funny
Yeah.
that you spoke about it on Facebook.
Yeah, I love it when the universe sends me things like that. Like, I know this is one of my next books because it keeps
Yes.
coming to me.
That is a sign from the universe. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely twice in 1 week.
I
Yeah.
want to get the cookbook too, so maybe I'll be inspired to cook some different recipes as well.
And our friend Beth, who also recommended it, also recommended maybe she didn't do the audiobook, but she was wishing that she said if it's the author reading it, she recommended that would probably be a fun way to get
Good
it
one to listen
to listen to it instead for those busy moms who don't have time to read or who fall asleep when they read, like Missy and I do.
I second that.
Yeah.
And Linda, do you have any Look, Listen, Learns?
Yeah, Judy's are fun. Mine are a little more like practical, but so for moms that are like maybe running small businesses or figuring that they need to figure out social media more than they understand it. I run the social media for EvolveMe. So I've had to, I don't know, there was a wall between me and Instagram for the longest time. It just, my brain doesn't work that way. When you're 55, it just doesn't.
I feel
But
ya.
so the podcast that I go to, my go-to resource for that is Social Media Examiner. And not all of
Oh,
it will be practical to what
writing
you're
it down.
doing. But if you scroll through his episodes, you can pinpoint like what it is. Like you heard about Clubhouse. What is that? How do I do it? He has
Oh my
really good
God.
guests. It's always very smart. It's always very helpful. So I like that. And then kind of in conjunction with that, if you haven't ever used Canva and you want to feel good about mastering a new tool, Canva can allow you to do that because even if you're a mom and you're not working and you just want to play with it, to go on a tool and design things, whether for social media or your kid's project or a poster, whatever, it's very fun to play with. It's very addictive and it's very doable.
Yes.
We second that. I love
I'm a Canva junkie.
And
But no, we talk about like being strategic in your roles to help you grow skills. And I used it for my kids' school's PTA newsletter.
Mhm.
So I use Canva to do the images, and I learned about MailChimp by doing
Yeah.
the actual newsletter. And I'm like,
Yeah.
these are like
Yeah,
legit
it's real skills.
business skills that
They're
can be
legitimate
used.
business
I might be
skills.
using it to talk about, a PTA event, but it's using, and
Yeah.
Canva is fun. I use it for all my Christmas cards and stuff now.
Put your PTA
Oh.
on Slack.
On
There would be
Slack.
another one. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Slack. And then we're interviewing someone tomorrow who's going to talk about some time blocking, but also using Trello to manage
Mhm.
home stuff in addition to. So I'm just like, what a great way to get a business
Yes.
skill
Yes.
that's
with-
helping you while you're at home,
Yeah.
but that you can then take when you go, if you choose to go back in the workforce. So
I
yeah, there's a
love
lot
that.
of things that you can do. And that I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, Canva is another great one that you can use for so many things at home, but is a skill that exercises your right brain a little bit, and it can be used. I ended up using it for clients actually when I was doing some
Yeah.
social media work. We had this client that just didn't have any ads to put up on social media. I was like, well, hey, I know how to
me
do
make some.
Canva.
Yeah.
Well, and then if you do something like that, if you experiment with something like Canva, you realize that all that stuff out there is very easy to figure out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So like once you do that, then you're like, oh, sure, I can figure out this other thing. So,
And 80% of the images come from Canva. I'm like, oh,
Right.
I know you. I used you for
Right.
something.
I see things
My
now
old
where I'm
friend.
like, oh, I scrolled past that one earlier today. Yeah.
yeah.
Hello,
Hard to keep
blonde
it
woman
fresh.
holding a
Yes.
box. I've used you before.
Yeah.
We need new images. We always say, like, we need a photo shoot, right? For women in midlife. Like, to,
Yes, exactly. We do. Yeah, that are doing actual more natural things
Yeah.
than show up in these Canva images.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
woman answering door to get UPS package. Like, yes, they're pretty
It'd
basic.
be, yes, the Amazon delivery at my house.
yeah.
Although maybe it just hurts because it's so accurate. I don't know. That's
That's
me.
usually why it feels bad. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. So, Missy, do you have any look, listen, learns?
I do. I just read, well, I listened to, speaking of falling asleep while you're reading.
Yes.
If I read at night, I'm out
Mm.
if I don't start early enough, which I never do. So I just listened to The Midnight Library by Matt Haig,
Oh.
and it's so much fun. It's fiction. It moves really fast,
saw this
but it
one.
explores the what ifs. So what if I'd made a different decision? What if I had gone this
Oh.
way instead of that way? Which it really resonates with what we do here on the podcast, but also is a huge fascination of mine. Like,
So, kind
are
of
we
sliding
living
doors ish.
little sliding doors ish? Like, is
Okay.
there a multiverse? Are there other versions of our lives happening out there? So it explores it in this really fun way, and it's some of it, the way she gets into the multiverse is heavy, but I loved it. And I've been thinking about it for a couple days since I finished it. So I highly recommend that one.
Next book.
And
My
then my
son just read
learn.
that, actually. My
She
son.
did.
No, my
Oh, your
son
son.
picked it out in the bookstore, and I was like, it looks fine. So now I'm going to borrow it from him.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
husband's reading it. He was telling me
Okay.
all about it.
There you go. It's
Hey.
in the family.
Now it's endorsed.
Yeah, exactly. Now you all have to read it too. So it
Ooh.
was great.
May-
I what?
Maybe I'll skip over to that one. I've been reading Circe. Has anybody read Circe?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
does it get I'm not super
Mhm.
into like Greek mythology and all that kind of thing, so I feel like I don't know
going.
some of the characters I'm supposed to know. I'm only on like the first chapter. So am I gonna
No,
You'll
it'll
go,
be
it's fine.
fine.
I'll be
And,
fine.
and you can Google them.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'll have to do. I'll be like,
You
"Who's
learn
Yeah, or you
that?"
can check with my kids. Like, they both went through a phase of knowing all. They still know all the characters, and if you say something incorrectly now, they'll be like,
Oh no!
"Oh,
If they were
that's the Greek
Pokemon
one or the
characters,
Roman
I would
one."
have it nailed. I'd be like, "Ooh, I know what steel type you are and how many points you are." Okay, I'll give that one another try because I was starting to just feel stupid listening to it, and I was like, "I don't know who any of these people are." And then finally, Medusa was introduced, and I was like, "Ooh, I know one!" Like finally,
I feel like
so-
that one would be a hard one to listen to. Just the way I process information, it
Mhm.
might be easier to see it on the page. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm known to like do family trees of like 100 Years of Solitude. First
Oh.
of all, it took me like 5 times to read. And I
You got
had
through it eventually because
Yeah.
I tried 3 times and gave up.
I still don't know if I finished it, but the 4th time or so that I was reading it, I was like, "Oh, this is really fun." Like it gets better and better the more you read it. But it's probably around here somewhere. I mean, it's like a giant, like a legal size paper. First of all, because everybody has the same name.
They all have the same
They're
name.
all named like Jose Alacardia or whatever. And I'm just like, seriously, get a different name. I have a hard enough time with names when you're not all named the same name. So yes, we'll see. Maybe that's my problem, is that I'm listening to it. But maybe I'll take a little jump over to the Midnight Library to give my brain a break from trying to figure out these Greek mythology things.
Yeah, you'll totally keep up with the characters in the Midnight Library. Like, it's not complicated.
Yeah. So I'm listening to that one, but am I learning, and I'm still exploring this thought because I haven't quite accepted it, but I think I might be becoming an extrovert,
Well, you were saying so.
which is really not normal. Like, I went into the pandemic very introvert, and I really relished the time at home as this introvert, and that was very nourishing for me. But we this weekend had some of our best friends from our old neighborhood. We moved a year ago and have not seen them since. They moved out of the neighborhood like a month after we did, and we're total opposite sides of town now. Pandemic. So it was the first time we'd seen them. They came to our new house. So that was exciting. But then we also had our new neighbors, 3 couples, come over last night. And that was the first time we've really had them in the house. I mean, we talked to
That's
them
kind of
outside
elite
and
to
stuff.
have new friends.
Yes. And so everybody came over, and I was expecting after 2 nights of this to just be like I'm just going to melt into a pile of goo. But the first night after Jen and Kevin left, Chris is like, "Oh, don't worry about the dishes. I'll get them tomorrow, whatever." I was like, "No, I need to do it. Like, I feel so like energized." I was like, is this what people feel like when they actually are like hanging out with people and don't have to go take a nap? So I was like, I have to put the dishes away because I'm so energized. And then the same thing last night, after they all left, I thought for sure, especially after 2 nights of it, I'm just going to go slump into a corner. But I was like, I feel so good. So I don't know if that's me becoming an extrovert or if that's me, the introvert, just having some extrovert tendencies for these first initial introductions back into the world. So I'm not making any broad statements about changing my personality type, but it was kind of fun. I got a little, at least, peek into the mind of an extrovert, even if it does not last any longer than this weekend. So that was kind of
I'm
fun.
fascinated by the concept of a social engagement not leaving me tired.
I know.
It wears me out. I love people and I love to go do things, but I do find that it drains me.
No, it gave me energy to do the dishes, which I never do. So it's just
it's a weird energy.
So that was a definite weird energy. So that was my learn, where I'm continuing to learn. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
I love it.
I'm sure I'll go
Well,
back
as an
into my cave.
outside observer, I think it would be really sad if you went back to your introvert tendencies, either of you, because everybody needs to hear more from you. So
thank you.
And I'm sad that you're in Texas far away, because I want to come have coffee.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of sad we're in Texas this month too, but for different reasons.
Yeah, we're going to come visit you on the East Coast.
Yes, we would love to have coffee with you, or just
we're
do
gonna come
this. Can
visit
we just
you
do
and
this
have
every
coffee
morning?
When we have a podcast eventually, if ever, we'll have you guys on. But
You definitely should have a podcast.
You should.
Yeah.
It's probably coming this winter.
Okay.
Exciting. Okay,
Yes,
keep us posted.
Definitely. If you need any tips, let us know. That's how
They need all the tips.
Yeah, we have so many friends that have podcasts. I just went to each one of them. I was like, okay, who do we do it through? How do we edit? And yeah.
That's what's like so amazing. I mean, Linda's heard me say this so many times, but like, even though I was in like the women's nonprofit sector for as long as I have, I've never felt more supported in this women's entrepreneurial space that we're in. And like we learned so much just from talking to other women who've been through this process or are on the same journey as we are, that are learning as we go. And it's been so inspirational and really helpful too, right?
Yeah.
To learn from each other.
I don't know if it's a cultural shift or if it's always been there, and the way I grew up, I didn't see it. I don't know, but I feel like there is a much stronger desire for women to help women.
I do.
Mhm.
I think
We
there is a cultural shift. I don't know. I mean,
too.
just from
So
being
I
true.
feel like it.
it's like the women's organizational world, at least.
Yeah.
Or
Like
it may just be the age we're at. Like
maybe,
once you get to midlife, you see the value and everything that all these amazing women have to offer and to teach
right?
you. And
Yeah,
now
I
that
mean, even in our reinvention collectives, like we
Mhm.
have guest expert contributors at several points throughout the DARE method. Like in some modules, we have two, and they come on and share because Judy and I could talk about all of this, but some people that's like we could talk about resumes, but we bring in a woman that's what she does.
That's what
And
she
we're
does.
so
Yeah.
happy to highlight her for other women, like both to give them her knowledge within our program, but then also if you want to work just with her on your resume, like here she is.
Yes.
And so we support each other through that.
Yes, I know. And I
Yeah.
get so much motivation hearing from this and hearing other people's stories and stuff. Yeah, Missy and I are both, we actually come from a writer's standpoint. So I'm
Okay.
working on a book proposal this week
Oh,
and
wow.
she's got a novel that she's working on
Oh,
edits
that's
and
so
stuff
cool.
from. So it's just I feel like this is just a burst of energy that we get every time to just be like, okay, these amazing women are out there doing cool things. So can we. So
This is
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
And I love that if you can't see it, you can't be it. I just think that I also came from this mindset of scarcity, that there were
Yeah.
only so many roles and only so many spots. And I'm realizing the older I get that there are opportunities out there that sometimes you have to go make it for yourself. But
Mhm.
just because Suzanne finds huge success doesn't mean I can't also. Like it's
Right.
out there for all of us.
yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we got to make it.
Love
though.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank you
both of
guys
you.
This is
I,
great.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
I am
you.
so glad to know you and know that you are out in the world changing lives. You are changing
Changing
lives.
lives.
And I just
For
think that's so
sure.
amazing. So
Well,
we're so
enjoy
ex-
your first day of school too.
Oh,
Go
thank
do
you.
something just for you for a little while.
Yeah.
yeah, go get that pedicure.
Yeah. Maybe I'll sneak away before they think
She won't.
She
Or at least a
It's not
quiet 10
happening.
minutes
There's
in the
no way
house
that's happening.
to just be like,
Well, I'll sneak away and I'll call Linda from the chair at the pedicure.
there you go.
Perfect. Oh,
All right. Thank
all
you.
I
right.
hope we do this again
Pretty,
soon.
really wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and ... podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show today. And if you know someone else who could benefit from today's episode, be sure to share it with them. Also, please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in the show notes over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the AND spelled out. In between shows, you can find us at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. You can find links to the group, all of our socials, and our questions and comments section over at our website, momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you so much. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.